Hey everyone, welcome back to Teach Me Now. This is your favorite boy coming back with another video. So our today's main focus is grade 10s actually. But before we go to grade 10s, we need to actually revisit grade 9. So basically we need to lay the foundation of algebra before we even go to grade 10. So without waste of time, let's jump to our question. So expand and simplify the following. So we have algebraic expressions. So A, they gave us -2, open bracket, negative p squared minus 3pq plus 8a, close bracket, minus 2, open bracket, qp minus 2a, close bracket, right? But before we even start, if you can check, we have a number outside the bracket, and then we have variables inside the bracket, and then a number outside the bracket, and then variables inside the bracket, right? So if I can check, I've just remembered that, okay, if we have maybe a number or a variable outside the bracket, we can always use that number or a variable to multiply out the brackets using distributive law. So we're distributing that variable or either the number, right? So if you can check here on my right hand side here on this part, we have A, open bracket, B plus C plus D. So we've multiplied what? A and B, we got AB, and then A and C, we got AC, as well as A and D, we got what? AD. So we need to apply the same logic on these problems. So without waste of time, let's start. So -2 times p squared, that's -2p squared. -2 times -3, that's positive 6p cubed, right? Perfect. And then -2 times +8, that's -16a, right? We're done with the first bracket. And then -2 times qp, right? We have now -2 times qp, and then -2 times -2a, we end up getting +4a, right? Now we can group the like terms now. So we have -2p squared. We don't have any p squared, right? And therefore we can now say plus 6p cubed, right? If you can check, p comes first compared to q, right? So we need to always start with p, or you can say a, b, c, d, just like that. So now qp, qp can be written as actually pq. So these two are the same, right? So we can also say, okay, we have negative what? qp can be written as -2pq. Perfect. And then now we say -16a plus 4a, right? And therefore now we need to actually add and subtract our like terms, right? We drop down this one. So we have -p squared, 6 minus 2, that's plus 4pq, and then -16 plus 4, that's -12a. We got our final answer. So these three terms are not like terms, so we cannot add or subtract them, which means that's our final answer, right? Now let's go to the next question, right? Let's go to the next question. So on our next question, we still need to apply the distributive law. So we distribute, we distribute, we distribute, So we're basically distributing, right? So 4 times 1, that's 4. X times x, that's x squared. And then y times y, that's y squared. We're done with the first one. Then 4 times 2, that's 8. X, there's no x. And then y times y, that's y to the power 3. When you multiply the same bases, we add the exponents. Perfect. Now 4 times negative 3, that's minus 12. And then we don't have any x as well. But y times y, that's y squared. Perfect. Now, negative 2 times 2, that's negative 4. Let's start with x, alphabetical order. So it's x and then y. Perfect. Negative 2 times 4, that's negative 8. X, y cubed. Remember, we have y squared as well as y there. And then now we must multiply now. Negative 2y multiplied by 2x, we get negative 4x y squared. Now we need to collect our like terms. Perfect. 100%. There we go, right? So negative 4x squared plus negative 4x squared y squared minus 4x squared y squared, they cancel each other. Let me just circle the two so that you can see. These two, they cancel each other, right? So we left with nothing. Perfect. 8 as well as 8. They cancel each other, right? We left with nothing. Now we have what? Minus 12xy minus 4xy squared. Now we subtracting, we get negative 16xy squared. That's our final answer. Perfect, right? And then if you can check for C and D, let me just say for C, basically we apply the FOIL method. Here's the FOIL method on this part. Here's the FOIL method here, right? So basically here we are given A plus B, close bracket, C plus D, close bracket. You first multiply A and C. The first ones, we get AC. And then you multiply A and D, the outers, we get AD. And then you multiply B and C, we get BC, which are our inners. And then you multiply B and D to get BD. Those are the last ones. Hence, we call that what? A FOIL method. So we can apply that on our sum here. So we can now just say, okay, 2x times x, right? So 2x times x, that's what? 2x squared. And then 2x times negative 3y, that's negative 6xy, right? That's our y. Perfect. And then now let me use a different color. And then y times x, that's what? Plus xy. And then y times negative 3y, that's negative 3y squared. And then from there, we can add or subtract our like terms. We have that as well as that. So negative 6 plus 1, that's negative 5, right? So we have negative 5xy minus 3y squared. Now we've solved, or actually simplified, rather, sorry, we've simplified our expression. So the last one, they gave us this algebraic expression, and then they said we must expand and simplify. So let's do that as well. If we have an exponent of 2 there on top, which means we must open 2 brackets. So we need to open 2 brackets. So we have x over 3, x over 3. We have 3 as well as 3 minus. We're repeating the bracket twice. So we apply the same thing, x over 3 and x over 3, and then x over 3 with 3. Now let's go. X over 3 multiplied by x over 3. And then now we need to say plus x over 3 multiplied by negative 3. Then we could. Now we must multiply negative 3 and then negative 3 again, right? So now we have what? Negative 3 multiplied by x over 3, and then negative 3 multiplied by negative 3. Now let's simplify further. You multiply numerator with numerator and then denominator with denominator. We get x squared over 9. And then as from here, remember this divided by 1 there. 3 and 3 cancel. You left with what? With x. But there's that negative sign there. Negative times positive gives us a negative. So we have negative x. And then divided by 1. Again, 3 and 3 cancel. We left with what? With x. But now x times negative 1. That's negative x. And then negative 3 times negative 3. That's positive 9. And then as from there, you add and subtract your like terms. So we have negative 2x plus 9. This is our final answer. This is your boy, Mandla, from Teach Me Now, signing out.